Teachers, what is the most NSFW thing you have done in your classroom? Teaching a science class about goats and sheep. To show the kids, middle schoolers and high schoolers, the animals up close, we planned on going to a livestock auction. To prep them for the auction, I told them to not point or raise their hands, because it was an actual auction and they might bid on the animal accidentally. For the respect of the community and business, they shouldn't do anything that looked like they were bidding. Then the questions came: what if we bid? Who would have to pay for it? What if I raise my hand to ask you a question? What if I think the animal is cute and bid on it? One kid wouldn't let it go, so I said, jokingly, if you bid on any of the animals, I'll put you up for auction. Only African American kid in the class. Didn't get fired. Felt awful. Okay, I'm not proud of this, but here we go. It was my first year teaching high school English to a bunch of thugs. I was only a few years older than some of them. Near the end of class, two guys are arguing loudly and I tell them to knock it off. They ask me to settle their argument for them. This one kid, let's call him Greg, says, if some guy puts a gun to your head and tells you to give him a blowjob, you'd have to do it, right? Greg, I say, that's not a conversation to have during class. The whole class is listening intently now. Well, says Greg, if someone put a gun to my head and told me to give him a blowjob, I'd do it. Well, Greg, I said, I'll remember that the next time I have a gun. The class erupts in laughter. Somehow I don't get fired. This isn't NSFW, but in retrospect, it was careless and could have gotten me in lots of trouble. My neighbor had a mannequin that was the same height as me. I had a pinhead mask. Halloween was a little over a week away. I couldn't resist. Day 1, students enter the class and see Pinhead sitting behind my desk. They know it's me. And they're right. It is me. But for 5 minutes into the period, I refuse to move or talk. After 5 minutes, I take off the mask and start teaching. I never talk about the mask. Day 2, students enter and see Pinhead again, sitting at my desk. The bell rings and class begins. After a minute I walk into the room and start teaching. Students get nervous and start looking at Pinhead, who is sitting at my desk. When they ask me about it, I refuse to acknowledge it. Focus on class, I yell at them. Day 3, Pinhead is still sitting at my desk. I am at the front of my class. As I predicted, students are now more courageous. They approach the mannequin and try to touch it. I preempt it by admitting that, yes, it's just a mannequin. I knock on its head so they can hear the hollow plastic underneath. Even so, throughout class, I see them stealing worried glances at the mannequin. Day 4, Pinhead is still there at the desk. I tell the students, sorry, I just haven't taken him home yet, since it's weird to leave the school with a life-size mannequin. We laugh. Day 5, Pinhead is still there. I tell my students that I'm actually quite enjoying his company. I make him a prop in my Spanish class, using him to model dialogue. Oh, teacher, you're so quirky. Day 6, Mannequin Pinhead remains. I remind students that their chapter exam is in 3 days. That's on Halloween, they complain. Day 7, Pinhead still sits at my desk in the same position. Students are forgetting about him. Day 8, Pinhead is old hat now. Seriously, teacher, the joke is getting old. Day 9, test day. Students begin a big, fake, unit exam. Their heads are buried in concentration. I am standing at the front of class. Pinhead is at the back, sitting at my desk. Without making a sound, Pinhead gets up and walks towards the students. He doesn't growl, he doesn't lunge, he just walks. Students panic. Desks are knocked over. They run, screaming, out of the room, clear down to the other end of the hallway. Teachers come pouring out of their classrooms. The principal and vice principal come running at full speed from the floor below. It is chaos, absolute chaos. It's my favorite moment as a teacher. To clarify, Pinhead was a mannequin until the final day, when he was switched out for another teacher. I'm a student, but in my 7th grade English class my teacher's boob fell out of her dress when she bent to pick something up. The stuff of legends. My maths teacher took a ruler off a student who was annoying him with it, licked it, then threw it out a window. The student then retaliated by grabbing the teacher's ruler and licking it. The teacher just sits there and says, "I don't give a damn, I use that to scratch my balls, no repercussions whatsoever." Math teacher got mad after a kid made a smart aleck remark, asked him to drop his pants in front of the whole class to prove how big his balls were. He was fired. Never found out the size of that kid's balls. I shit you not, last week a kid lit up a joint in a classroom. 7th grade. 8th grader came into my classroom during my prep. In a panic, he asked, "Miss, did you see a bag of weed in here? I think I dropped it in your class this morning." Dumbfounded, I explained that A, he shouldn't be doing drugs, B, he definitely should not have drugs in school, and C, he should so very obviously not ask a teacher to help him find said drugs. Then I went home and smoked his weed. It was a good day. My father is a history teacher at a high school in the city. Once a particularly churlish student, who sat in the front row, was blatantly and shamelessly on his phone in the middle of class. Naturally, my father tells him to hand over the phone. Surprisingly, the kid gives it up without a fight. However, the kid quickly pulls another phone out of his pocket. "I have 2 phones," the kid sneers. He points to the phone in his hand, "This one is for business." He points to the phone in my father's hand, "And that one is for pleasure." "Well then," my father says, "that explains why this one is on vibrate." To this day my dad is surprised that he didn't lose his job right then and there. In 9th grade I fucked my teacher's daughter. My teacher called me a man whore in front of my whole class. I was a marching band instructor, just in the summer for band camp. One of the kids was eating a bag of Skittles during a break and she asked me, "Do you want to taste my rainbow?" Without thinking, I blurted out, "Not until you're 18. I wasn't fired. When I was in 8th grade, the class clown thought he was untouchable. He was a man among boys. I believe he was held back a year, taller than just about anybody, and growing in his facial hair. He was always doing whatever he wanted, throwing food at lunch, skipping class, and just about anything that he felt would get a reaction. All the girls loved him too. They thought he was the hottest thing this side of the sun, so they usually let him get away with saying or doing things most of us couldn't. One day, I guess all of that got to his head, because he was flirting with a group of girls in the back of the class, and decided whipping out his dick was a good idea. But not only did he whip it out, he put it on the kid's shoulder in front of him and showed it off to the girls around him. He got in trouble because little Susie got scared by the anaconda and screamed. Everyone turned around and the classroom erupted with all kinds of reactions. Best I remember were Miss French letting out an "oh my god" and the kid who had dick shoulder screaming like a little girl. Not a teacher, but in training. I was in placement within a primary school and a little kid shit himself. I felt really bad for him and went to get a teacher without others finding out, but this kid started screaming that someone had shit under his desk. I then realized he had scooped it out and threw it under his desk, and squishing it under his shoe for authenticity? Anyway, I then had to escort a whole class out of a classroom and tell the real story to a teacher, which suspended the child for 2 days. Not a teacher, but this happened when I was in high school, about 35 years ago. My English teacher was the hot teacher in the school. One day, she's sitting at her desk and I had a question to ask, raised my hand, went to her desk, and from where she was sitting and I was standing and the dress she was wearing, could see a good deal down her top. I said, "Wow, look at all those freckles," and went on to my question without missing a beat. Fast forward to the end of the school year as we are taking our final exams and she walks over to my desk, slowly leans over so I could get a good look and whispers, "I've not worn this dress since you commented on all my freckles." Pause, "Now it's your turn to blush." She smiles, and walks away. My 7th grade English teacher who was in her first year never had control of her classroom. A couple weeks before the end of the year our class was arguing with her about something and she screamed, "Fuck you all." Never saw Mrs. Wallace again. One of my teachers has an awesome ass. Like really nice. She wears tight pants and a thong most days. It's pretty fucking obvious. According to my friends, in the 8th grade our hot-ass history teacher wore a dress with no underwear and sat with her legs open enough for my friends to see everything. Sure sounds like something 8th grade kids would make up. Not a teacher, but this happened to my teachers. There was 2 teachers who were married and were working at the same school. They also had rooms next to each other with a small storage room between them. And there they had a whole kitchen, shelves with glassware, a TV, and most importantly, a couch, and every so often they would meet there and have sex during lunch. The school found out and they were both forced to quit. They moved to a different town and got new jobs at different schools. Not a teacher, but when I was a high school senior I had a homeroom teacher in her early 20s. She was also an NFL cheerleader. Very hot. She showed me how she could fit her fist in her mouth. When she was done she looked at me and said she probably shouldn't have done that. I agreed but said thank you.